Common Knowledge is brought to you by our friends at Game Grid Midvale, our local game store who puts players first with weekly competitive events, below market pricing, and the best customer service available. Check out their online inventory using the link in our description.
We are also sponsored by inkgaming.com. Use coupon code CCMTG10 at checkout for a 10% discount on all inked gaming supplies and accessories. You can support the show directly through Patreon at patreon.com/common knowledge.
This is the Common Knowledge Podcast. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 83 of the Common Knowledge Podcast. I am your host, Brandon, and joined with me, as always, is the mighty Sean the Lobbert.
What's up, my Brandon?
How you doing, my Lobbert?
I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, good.
Still haven't been able to play much Pauper since I'm behind on editing, and that's eating up all my time. But you play much Magic this week?
I try to play one league a week still on Friday morning. This week, however, I did not because I finally got my textbook in the mail and have spent all my free time catching up on 3 weeks worth of homework that I couldn't do until I got my textbook.
Well, it's a pretty fitting show then, since we haven't played any competitive stuff, that we're doing a casual topic.
We're doing a really casual topic. We are going to be talking about pauper EDH today. We went real deep in the barrel of show topics for this one. But I'm kind of excited about it because it's not something that I've really ever dabbled in at all. And so it's been kind of fun exploring it and learning a little bit about this format.
I've had this on the docket of something I wanted to do for like more than a year now. And
it's always been something that I've kind of been like, no, we probably shouldn't talk about that because we're trying to be a competitive focused podcast. And what does pauper EDH do for our listeners? And this week I was like, I don't have time to play Magic or write show notes. Sure, let's do pauper EDH. That sounds great. I'll just go watch YouTube videos. It'll be great.
So yeah, I mean your deck building skills that you've developed in Pauper will translate into this format, but it is a different format. Like, we're not talking about just Pauper this week. It is pretty different.
Yeah, the only thing that is really the same is that all the cards in your deck have to be common.
Yeah. So that's a huge similarity, which we can justify the episode, but this doesn't mean we're doing other formats really ever.
A Cube episode.
That's got to be coming, but I don't
like
know.
That would have been a way better one for us to do than pauper EDH.
I have no idea how that episode would even go.
You can just talk about your cube for an hour.
That seems really self-indulgent, and nobody would be interested.
I don't know. There's an entire YouTube channel. Shout out to Life Begins at 20. He's just the cube aficionado. Like, he's always releasing new videos about his pauper cube and updates from new sets. Oh, I'm sure people would love to hear you talk about pauper cube.
Okay, yeah, I guess I could maybe figure one out. Maybe that'll be a year from now. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows?
Okay.
But anyway, today, pauper EDH. But first, the most important part of any episode of Common Knowledge, the card of the week.
Card of the week.
This week I chose Sparksmith as our card. It is a colorless and a red for a 1/1 goblin. It has the ability tap. Sparksmith deals X damage to target creature and X damage to you, where X is the number of goblins in play. So this is one of those weird not symmetrical, but like one of those weird effects that count your opponent's goblins as well. So that can actually be a bad thing, since if this is dealing damage to you, you're overkilling the creature too much and taking 7-8 damage. It's not going to come up super often, since like mono red is a popular deck, but not that popular. But the things that this card does for your deck are kind of crazy. Like, Pauper doesn't get abilities on cards, like activated abilities that are usually relevant, and this one has like actual just point click removal. There's a cost for it, but it's a removal or a reputable removal source that can double as a creature for your goblin synergies.
Yeah. The other great thing about this card is for almost as long as I've been playing the format, it has been defined from the point of view of like aggro decks as a format of X1 creatures that you're trying to attack through. Mm-hmm. Augur of Bolas was such a big thing. One of the things that, made things difficult for aggro decks in that time. And now we're on to like Core Skyfisher is super dominant. I mean, Core Skyfisher was still around back then too, but Augur was like the one. Like if I said what 2 mana X3 defines the format, it'd be Augur. Right now it's Core Skyfisher. Augurs still make appearances. But that's just not easy for a deck of goblins to do, where they're primarily just like X1s, 1/1s. So Sparksmith kind of gives those decks that reach where they can get in that damage when they can, and then if their Sparksmith goes unanswered, it is a way to win the game despite your opponent stabilizing the board with their bigger creatures.
Yeah, it just fits straight into that strategy of you punch a hole, jump through that hole, and just deal as much damage as possible. Your opponent's going to be on the back foot, so your life total will become relevant, but it's not like an immediate threat most of the time. Like, your plan is kill them before they kill you. Be careful with this if they're playing a red deck, since your life total can come into play at any point where they just start throwing bolts at your face. But it's also a source of card advantage in red at the cost of life.
Cool. Alrighty, so that was Sparksmith, our card of the week. Let's move into the main topic.
Main topic.
All right. Thank you, Deep Voice. Main topic time.
His name is Tall Chicken, by the way.
Tall Chicken. Thank you,
Tall Chicken.
I actually had someone asking me about that. Who's the guy who does that super deep voice? And I was like, it's one of Sean's friends.
Yeah, he's got way more followers than us on Twitter. He does all kinds of YouTube stuff. But yeah, he goes by Tall Chicken if you want to follow him on Twitter and hear his deep voice.
Well, it was funny because Sean was telling me about it and explaining all that to me, like what he does and like his following on Twitter and YouTube and everything. And I was like, oh, so we're actually probably getting exposure by having him featured in our podcast instead of vice versa. And yeah, definitely.
Well, he doesn't ever pimp our podcast.
No, he doesn't. But if anyone ever like looks into like stuff he does, they could find us.
I'm not so sure.
Really? You don't think that he has a list of all the things he's been featured in? No. This is purely out of the goodness of his heart that he did this for you.
No, yeah, because we were friends since like as long as I can remember. Before kindergarten, we were just a couple houses away, and we were friends, all the way past high school. Like, yeah, we've done different stuff, but it's like one of those friends that, like, you're always solid still. I don't know. So I asked him to do this, and I was like, I'll even pay you because I just know he has a good voice for this stuff. And he's just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Here you go.
Neat. So I guess everyone's wondering, did he have the voice in kindergarten?
Yes.
All right. Anyway. Okay. Tall Chicken. Check him out. Main topic. Pauper EDH. So there is an active Reddit for this format. So go look into that if you want to learn a lot more.
Yeah, there are resources out there for this. The Pauper Reddit is good if you want to ask questions. But in addition to that, I found that the website pdhhomebase.ca was like, that's where I got pretty much all of these notes. Like, it just has a list of, like, they've looked at every uncommon card and they've picked out the ones that they think make good commanders, and you can sort it by color. They have all the multicolors in there, 3+ colors. They have all the rules, and seriously, if they have a list of, like, this is my general, here's a starting list. Like, here's like a list that we've built for that. So there, like, I was struggling with this because I was just like, it's not even on most of the deck list websites that I visit, but this one website was just like, no, we'll just do it all here. We got you.
It's the EDH rec of PDH.
It's the rules for this format are pretty much the Commander rules, except that you have an uncommon as your general, and the rest is just 99 common cards.
So I was waiting for that. I bet you we had a ton of people screaming when I said that every card in your deck needed to be common. Because your general is actually uncommon. But
right.
Your general's in the command zone, not your deck.
Yeah, it's part of your deck.
Nope. It's a different zone.
Sure. It doesn't start in your library, but it's in your deck?
No.
Anyway, your general doesn't need to be legendary, is one important distinction. It's just any uncommon creature you can put in there. And that
up until Dominaria, there weren't uncommon legendary creatures.
Oh, there were. There definitely were. They're just
okay.
There weren't very many of them, and they were very low quality. So, like, they just opened it up to make it more fun. You start at 30 life. If your commander deals 16 damage to somebody, that player loses the game. It's the normal command zone rules where it costs more every time you go to cast it. As far as I could tell, and I looked through the rules a few times, it's not using any ban list. Like, not the pauper ban list. There's not a general ban list, but they do have a watch list on the Reddit, and I thought that would be a good place to start, as just like,
yeah,
these are going to be your tier 1 strategies. If they're good enough to put on a watch list, let's shout those out first.
Yeah, and when I think about what a watch list is for a casual format like this, these are cards that they're saying, like, yeah, you can play with it, but maybe at the discretion of your play group, you know?
Yeah.
Because these are the cards that are going to generally create unfun or one-sided games where one player's deck could just be much more powerful than the rest of the table, which I personally think is an important thing in Commander, that everyone is on the same page in terms of power level. Because you're playing Commander games to have fun.
Right.
You know, that's casual. This is for funsies.
That slipped my mind of, like, we didn't make the distinction. This is, like, just like Commander, a multiplayer format that people play for fun.
Yeah, and even this is probably even like next level casual compared to normal Commander.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
So I think about it like this. There's Commander, right? And then there's CEDH, competitive EDH. The cards on this watch list would like elevate you to CPDH.
That's just too many letters.
Yeah, too much. 4 letters is right out. Alrighty, so let's just go down this list of cards on the watch list. So we've got Ascended Lawmage, which is 2 white and a blue for a 3/2 Vidalcan Wizard with flying and hexproof.
I mean, on the face, this doesn't... I mean, is this super impressive to you right off the bat, right out of the gate?
Right out of the gate, no, but knowing what other cards on the watch list are, it makes sense to me. And I think there will be a distinct pattern.
Yeah.
Card has hexproof, it can create one-sided games. And it gives you access to blue and white, which are a couple very powerful colors in this format.
Yeah, it's an evasive hexproof creature. Definitely, like, you can just kill somebody pretty quick with this. Especially since there's the whole commander damage clause where
16.
Yeah, it's gonna work like it works exactly like Infect, where you have to do half as much damage. And if you got an evasive hexproof creature, like,
yeah. And when you think about cards like Ethereal Armor, you know, that could be really fast.
Yeah. The next one is one of my favorites on the list. It is Disciple of Deceit. It is blue-black for a 1/3 human rogue. It has Inspired. It says, whenever Disciple of Deceit becomes untapped, you may discard a non-land card. If you do, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as that card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. So if you're familiar with deck theory with Commander, you know that searching your library is incredibly powerful in a singleton format with 100 cards. Did I mention that this is a singleton format? You can only play one of each card.
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned it. I don't know. Same rules as Commander.
Yeah.
I guess if any of our listeners don't know what Commander is, I find that incredibly unlikely, but yeah. 99 card singleton. The only card that you can have multiples of are basic lands.
And Relentless Rats.
Relentless Rats, Persistent Petitioners.
Done. That's the deck. I'm going to make it.
7 Dwarves. You can have 7 of those.
Yeah, the Disciple of Deceit, it's got a decent body, and it's just tutoring. You're just getting rid of cards in your hand, tutoring. Since those cards are in the graveyard, you're generating advantage off of those. I think that's real cool.
Yep. Next card is Crypt Rats. 2 and a black for a Crypt Rat. We know what that is, right?
Yeah, it's the 1/1 that you pay X black mana into, and it does that much damage to each creature and each player.
So this card is also common. So this card could go into your EDH deck, or your Pauper EDH deck. But it can also be your commander, because it's been printed at an uncommon as well. It's on the watch list, obviously, because it's a recurring board wipe.
Yeah. There's other cards that are also common, like a Moldrifter is one. I have a small list that I wanted to bring up later, but I think that's real cool that you could have like a true Pauper EDH deck with like Crypt Rats. Next there's a couple of these cards and they're pretty much the same, and they both made their list. It is Enigma Drake and Spellheight Chimera. Enigma Drake is a colorless, a blue, and a red for a star 4 creature Drake. It has flying, and it says Enigma Drake's power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. It's the same text on Spellheart Chimera, except it's a Chimera, and it also has trample, and its toughness is 1 less.
Yep, and I think this follows that same pattern of evasive creature that can kill people like 1-hit commanders, kill lethal commander damage like Ascended Law Mage could. These are a little different because unlike Ascended Law Mage, you don't have to spend all your mana putting enchantments onto it. I think these might be a little more powerful because they kind of just say play the spells in your deck. Just like powerful instants and sorceries, and then get a huge payoff. So those cards on the watch list. The next card on the watch list is Invisible Stalker, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human rogue, hexproof and unblockable. So anyone who played Innistrad Limited knows how awful this card is for games.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm going to do a thing, you can't interact with it. It's like the ultimate clock, kind of. Just, it's counting down, nothing you can do. You can gain life to stall it out, but we're going to put some enchantment on this or a bone splitter, and you're going to die in 3 turns.
Yeah. It's only blue, which possibly makes it slightly worse than Ascended Law Mage, but this card has better evasion, it's unblockable, and it only costs 2 mana.
Yeah, that's huge. Next is Mist Meadow Witch. It is a colorless and a hybrid white-blue for a 1/1 Kithkin Wizard. It has the ability 2 white-blue, exile target creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next player's end step. So it's a 2 mana 1/1 with like 4 mana Cloud Shift or Ephemerate on it, and that's a super powerful effect. I'm a little bit surprised this is on the list, since I think there's a card that's more powerful than this that does close to the same thing. You know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
Doesn't Soul Herder? Are you familiar with Soul Herder?
Oh, Soul Herder. Yeah, that might just be because Soul Herder is really new.
Yeah. I'll just read Soul Herder to clue people in. Soul Herder is 1 white-blue for a 1/1 spirit. When a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Herder. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control and then return that to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's a free flicker. You pay 1 additional mana up front. It doesn't cost hybrid, so it's a little bit tougher to cast, but it's also growing. Like, this just could become massive. I think doing it automatically is kind of broke. Like, I think that this will be on their list. Just give it a little bit.
All right, our next card is Psychotog. 1 blue-black for a 1/2 creature. Discard a card, Psychotog gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. Exile 2 cards from your graveyard, Psychotog gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. So, this is, again, that same pattern of cards that can just one-shot players because of the commander damage rule.
Yeah. and it's in blue black, so it's this like weirdly like it's this great win con. It kind of protects itself, it kind of doesn't. It does have a cost associated with that, like if you're not don't have enough cards in your hand or your graveyard's being exiled, but like your graveyard being a resource where you can just exile those cards and make this huge. That is why Psychotog is just nuts. Like, I've actually never played against or with a Psychotog, but I've just heard legends of just like when this was in standard, this was the best thing that you could do and stuff
Well,
like
this
that.
card was also in standard with Upheaval.
What's up, people?
Return all permanents to all players' hands. So float your mana, Upheaval, cast Psychotog, next turn, kill them.
Right, because everything's in your hand, and
then you discard a bunch of stuff to hand size.
And they don't have any lands to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now I know why the legend exists. But that's the list of cards that are on that watch list, and I do think that they all have a common theme. So keep that in mind when we're going through the other cards. That you don't want to build something too strong and have you're gonna have a bad time.
I mean, unless your whole group is in agreement, like, hey, we're fine with watch list cards. We're building powerful decks.
Yeah.
Go for it. That's sort of the biggest thing about these EDH commander style formats, Brawl, whatever it is. It's really just up to your play group,
Yeah, and I feel like this might not have that same restraint that Commander does, because I feel like Commander, the cost to buy an optimal deck is thousands and thousands of dollars, and everybody's gonna have a different budget for playing Magic, where this is a pauper deck and you're just buying one uncommon general. $100 is like a fair budget, and you can replace any cards if you can find better ones, and you can all make each other improve your decks. I think that's cool and how I would want to play it, but I understand that that's not really how it works, and that if people are playing casually, they don't want to be forced into a strategy that they don't want to play.
Yep. All right, so now we're going to talk about some more cards that are also printed as uncommons. These are, again, like Crypt Rats. They can be in your 99 or they can be in your command zone.
Yeah, just some ideas, that cards you're familiar with that might be fun. The first one I put on here is Mole Drifter. Like, that seems like a fun... Like, it seems like fun, maybe not that good, because you're playing a mono-colored deck that's trying to be a control deck, but you're only mono blue, so there's going to be some weird, like, just mono blue isn't the greatest control deck. You want another color with it typically, but Mole Drifter's cool. It'd be a fine general.
The next card is one that I'm surprised isn't on the watch list, just given the vein of some other cards on the watch list, and that's Slippery Boggle. 1/1 hexproof for 1 mana. It's also hybrid mana, so that gives you access to blue and green. So you can play Ancestral Mask and counter spells, stuff like that. Maybe it's just because Slippery Boggle doesn't have built-in evasion.
I think that's it, in that a 99 card deck is going to be slower. Like a 99 card singleton deck is going to be slower, and you just want those extra abilities on your Slippery Boggle. I think there's nothing wrong with it. It's just going to be a slightly worse, but maybe the colors are what you want to play. Next I have Atog. It seems like a pretty easy combo to throw together of just, here's a bunch of cool artifacts, some payoff cards for those, a Fling and a Teamer Battle Rage. There's my PDH deck.
Yeah, that seems pretty dope. Next card is Peregrine Drake. This is another card that I'm surprised is not on the watch list, but maybe it's just harder to abuse this in 99 card singleton, especially in Pauper where tutors aren't really a thing. So maybe this card's fine.
Maybe. I know that's there's Peregrine Drake and there's also Cloud of Fairies. So take your pick, whatever's better.
I guess they're also mono blue. Maybe they're they're probably less abusable in mono blue, but
that's true. I like Ghostly Flicker still is there, and then your Mnemonic Wall and stuff, but you can't have cost reducers. So maybe people played this enough that they think that's balanced, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk about some other notable uncommon commanders that people can play in their decks?
Yeah,
Their generals?
I'm super happy with that.
Oh, add another card to this list. The first card that we'll talk about, we're going to talk about the Guild Mage cycle. So these are double hybrid color creatures for each guild from the Ravnica. So there will be a Dimir and an Orzhov and a Gruul, etc. And they always have 2 activated abilities that are generally pretty powerful. But there is one Guild Mage that's a common and an uncommon. Dimir.
Yeah.
So,
and I think they
also be in your.
They also, like, there was the original Ravnica, and then the Return to Ravnica. I think they revisited that cycle and did like a whole other cycle.
They revisited it again in Return to Ravnica. I think that there was another cycle of. Maybe they weren't called. They might not have been called Guild Mages. I can't remember for sure, but I feel like there were some guild centric things with activated abilities in the new Ravnica blocks too. But
maybe, like, I searched it on Gatherer real quick. I just typed in the word Guild Mage to see what came up, and there were like 25 cards. So that's neat. Easy go-tos. Like, all of their abilities, since they're activated abilities, can be repeated, and they're pretty good. The next one I had is just to mention that 5-color decks are a thing. If you were wondering, your general's gonna suck, but the point of a 5-color deck is just to play with all of the good cards. So they're really all like vanilla creatures, or decently costed creatures, like a 3-mana 2/2, but you pay Wooburg into it, and it becomes a 6/6 or something with flying. I don't know. I haven't read all of them, but I did notice that they all just weren't great.
Yeah, but I think even in Commander, like EDH, a lot of people just play 5-color generals just to have access to 5 colors. They don't really care about the general. So like Sliver Queen is a really popular commander. Was a really popular commander in like the early stages because there just weren't a lot of 5-color commanders. And it wasn't even like people weren't playing Sliver decks. They just needed a 5-color commander. Or like they were playing like Corona the False God. Not because they wanted to try to do something silly with Corona, but they just needed 5 colors. So yeah, if that's your thing, if you want to try to play all 5 colors, there is a commander that you can choose, and that's fine. Because you don't have to win through commander damage. You can just win the game naturally.
Yeah, I think my favorite, and I didn't actually add it to the show notes, but my favorite that I saw was you pay 1 of each color, like that's its cost, and it's like an 8/8. It's just a vanilla 8/8. I hit somebody twice with that and they're dead. But from here, I've just got a list of cards that we might want to talk about, and we're just gonna kind of freestyle from here. Have you looked through this or thought about what you would choose as your commander?
Oh, yeah. There's a few cards on this list that I would definitely choose. Some of my just like personal favorites.
What's that?
Well, Tatiova Benthic Druid is one of the top cards on my list. For those of you who don't know what Tatiova is, it is 3 green and a blue for a legendary merfolk. So, kind of a relevant creature type. I don't think relevant in Pauper, but it's a 3/3. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain 1 life and draw a card. I have no idea how abusable this is in Pauper. I haven't really looked into it. I know that cards like Explore, Growth Spiral, those are cards that are legal in Pauper. Colony Heart Expedition is a common, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of ways to just like put a bunch of lands into play. You can play like Sky Shroud Ranger. Is Walking Atlas a common?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. So if we find we could do some shenanigans with Walking Atlas and our bounce lands. Unfortunately, the retreats are not common.
Right.
Yeah, because if we could get Retreat to Coral Helm in this deck, start going off with Walking Atlas and a bounce land. Dang, Daniel, draw your whole deck. All right, now we're talking. But yeah, this card is just super powerful. It is one of my favorite cards out of Dominaria. It was one of my favorite cards to pick up in drafts, Dominaria drafts. It's just a really powerful card, and it's like right up my alley. Blue, green, draw cards, gain life. I love it.
Yeah, both of those things, like you stall into playing all of your extra stuff, you have all the ramp to play those extra things. You're gonna have the question of like, how are you winning the game? You can't just win the game with having 17 cards in your hand. I mean, it's a moral victory, but you got to find a pauper finisher. Like all of the ones on most of the ones on that watch list, I feel like were win conditions. For me, if I'm gonna play a deck over and over, I want it to be like feel like my deck. I would want to choose some kind of artifact. Artifact creature is my commander. Probably Shardless Agent. I might want to find something that's red just because I like red cards, but
Blood Elf was the next card on my list.
Yeah, those were the first two cards that I put into these show notes were like, let's talk about Bloodbraid Elf and let's talk about Shardless Agent. So Shardless Agent is 1 green-blue for a 2/2 human rogue, and it has Cascade. If you're not familiar with Cascade, it means you reveal the top card of your library until you hit something with converted mana cost less than this, and put it into play. It may not be good. I may not have looked into this enough, because I know what you're usually doing with Shardless Agent is you're casting suspend cards that don't have a converted mana cost for free. So, in Legacy, this is 3 mana, 2/2, draw 3 cards is one of the suspended cards, or something like that. Maybe I wouldn't want to do it since I'm going to be playing counter spells, and those could just be whiffs. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could play 3 mana counter spells. You could play foil. Like, there are counterspell options that you could play in your deck. I would never play anything with 2 or less if Shardless Agent was what you were doing. Also, I feel like counterspells aren't really what you want to do, I think, in a deck with Shardless Agent at the helm.
Yeah.
You just want to tap out on turn 3 right away, play Shardless Agent, get value. And I feel like you just want to, like, every chance you get, you want to cast Shardless Agent.
Yeah, that's a good point. So maybe Shardless Agent is actually bad. Maybe, like, I think Bloodbraid Elf is really good because it's a bigger body. You're cascading into aggressive creatures. So that's like an actual game plan, where Shardless Agent, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing with it. I mean, I think my runner-up might just be a Johnny's Pridemate. Just build a life gain deck that I can repeatably just cast this. Like, find some repeatable life gain sources, jam those in the deck, and then a Johnny's Pridemate just grows every time, and I just have this big smasher that I try to give evasion.
Yeah. That could be really fun. I think that the next card that I'm certainly interested in playing, and another card that I'm not sure why is not on the watch list, is Crackling Drake.
I know, that seems like a better version of the other cards on that list.
Yeah, maybe the casting cost, blue, red, but if you're just a dedicated blue-red deck, I don't think this card's hard to cast,
Right. I know that the fixing gets harder in singleton decks.
Yeah, and Pauper especially, where we're much more limited. We basically just have the Guild Gates. I know that there are a lot of Guild Gate versions, but I don't know if those are actually common. So, like, there was a cycle of Guild Gates and by Guild Gates, I mean tap lands that don't do anything except just be multicolored. There was a cycle in, like, the Battle for Zendikar block. I'm not sure if that was an uncommon cycle or not. So, you've got like the Guild Gates, you've got the tap lands, the gain lands from Khan's block, bounce lands from Original Ravnica, Ash Barrens,
Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic
Expanse as your big fixers.
And you can use the...
Are the slow fetches commons?
No.
No? Okay.
There is, like, I'm pretty sure you can play them, like Command Tower?
That's a common.
Yeah, there's Command Tower, and then the new Power Stone thing, the 2 mana...
Oh,
it's a signet.
Arcane
Signet.
Yeah.
As well as the normal signets.
Yeah, you did get access to all the signets. Jeez, was Soul Ring ever printed as a common?
No.
Oh, thank goodness.
But, I mean, Crackling Drake costs 1 additional mana. It's heavier on the converted mana cost, but it has the clause of... it's an X4 with flying. Its power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard as well as in exile. And then it also says draw a card, so it's more consistently, like, you can't hate it out since your graveyard is going to exile or it's in your graveyard, so those cards stay there. You get a draw card. Yeah, that was played a lot in standard, I believe. I don't pay attention to standard, but I thought I saw it running around.
Crackling Drake
Yeah.
in standard? Yeah. This card was really good in standard. It even saw modern play in the Arclight Phoenix decks as like a one of
Oh,
at the
makes
top.
sense.
Yeah. Let's see, I think the last card that I'm we kind of talked about Shardless Agent and Bloodbraid Elf. But yeah, Bloodbraid Elf after Tatiova would be at the top of my list. The last card is just Kitchen Finks.
I'm surprised that you didn't say the other one near the top.
Kitchen Finks or Crackling Drake?
I'm surprised you didn't say John Finkel. Shadow Mage Infiltrator?
That's because you got the bad artwork for it. I didn't see it. All right. Shadow Mage Infiltrator. Okay, that's my number one. Go into the binder. For those of you who are watching on the YouTubes, all right, here's my commander, the Shadow Mage Infiltrator. It's even signed by John Finkel. All right, cool. End of discussion. That's my PDH deck. Sean just used the crappy Masters 25 artwork, and I just like overlooked it as like, oh, okay, I don't care, whatever that is.
No, I just grabbed the first one, but I do think it's cool since so Shadow Mage Infiltrator is a colorless, a blue and a black for a 1/3 human wizard. It has fear, so it can only be blocked by
deck right now. Like, I'm doing it.
It can only be blocked by artifact creatures or blue or black creatures, and it says whenever Shadow Mage Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So it's got a little bit of evasion. I'm sure that there's somebody at your table that it's going to be able to hit so that you can draw a card. If you pants it up and make it pretty big, it's a good way to deal commander damage. And it's got John Finkel on it, if you get the right artwork.
And it's signed by John Finkel, if you had him sign it.
That sounds hard. He doesn't show up to a lot of events anymore, does he?
Does. I think the only Magic events he plays anymore are Pro Tour or Players Tours, formerly known as Mythic Championships, formerly known as Pro Tours.
He only decides to show up to a tournament when there's $1 million on the line. That's worth it, but everything short of that.
Well, I mean, Pro Tours, I think it's only like $50,000 on the line.
Sure.
But also, John Finkel is a Hall of Famer and goes for free. He used to get perks for going, but honestly, I'm not sure what's happening with the Hall of Fame going forward, and I don't know if Hall of Fame players are just going to be naturally invited anymore. And I think a lot of Hall of Famers are just going to stop going to events if they have to qualify for them again. Like Kai Buddha, I don't know that I could see Kai Buddha like caring enough to like, okay, I'm going to go play a Pro Tour qualifier so I can try to go to this Pro Tour. Same with like John Finkel. I mean, these are players who have like full-time jobs who already endured the grind that is, professional Magic the Gathering. I don't know that they want to go through that again after they've already made it. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
I could also be wrong, and Wizards has already announced what they're doing with the Hall of Fame, and I just missed it. And someone's going to tell me I'm an idiot and that Hall of Famers still get to play all the Pro Tours or whatever. But anyway, that's way off topic. So
it's okay. I mean, we've got time to...
Perfect is a cool card.
What's that?
Imperious Perfect? It is a 2 generic green elf warrior. It's a 2/2, and it gives other elves +1/+1, and you can pay a green, tap it to make a green elf warrior token.
And it actually says other elf creatures you control. So this isn't one of those stupid old cards that are going to give your opponent's elves huge pluses. I really like this. Like, any elf player, welcome to PDH. Like, this is your general.
This might be the other card that I build just because I have a whole bunch of pauper elf cards that I just never play with because, I don't know, I just don't play elves very often anymore. I don't mind playing elves as much in paper, but online, I'm never doing that again.
One of the other ones I pulled out was Satyr Enchanter. It's a colorless, a green, and a white for a 2/2 Satyr Druid. and it says whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. So just a enchantress style that is in the enchantment colors, the best ones, green and white. I feel like that's super strong. I mean, all of this people should take with a grain of salt, since this isn't a format either of us have played, but we're just like having fun speculating.
Yeah, and I'm actually kind of excited about it. I kind of want to build some decks.
I want to own a deck, and I probably will never have an opportunity to play it, but I feel like this is something I should just have.
I feel like I should have at least 4 decks so that I can play it. Because no one else will have decks. But if I have 4, I can play a match with people.
I would really be interested in trying to build a storm deck, since none of the storm cards are banned in this. I mean, there's all of you can play Gush and what's the one? Frantic Search, stuff like that. Gataxian Probe. Like I think that's why you would choose a 5-color general, is just so you could be like, I'm just gonna play all the cool storm cards. Nah.
Yeah, 5-color storm.
What makes me say that?
Mm-hmm. You can play with Rush of Knowledge.
Ooh.
5-color storm Rush of Knowledge deck.
Throw in the fish parts and
actual storm wind conditions.
Mm-hmm. What makes me say that is I was looking at Gutter Snipe. It's the 2 and a red 2/2 Goblin Shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. So each opponent, I think that's pretty cool, where you can kill everybody at the same time. You just have to keep casting spells. Yeah, they're at more life, and it doesn't count as commander damage since that's only combat damage, right?
Yeah, combat damage is different than Gutter Snipe damage, unless Gutter Snipe attacks for 2.
I don't know. This format I feel like is cool because it brings an aspect to new cards and new sets that I love. Of like, every new format that you play is another reason to scour those new cards. Like, I visited the Reddit and they just have all of the new uncommon cards of like, hey, consider this in this new light of playing it in PDH. And I think that's really cool. Like, it probably hurts me more than it helps me, but when somebody's like excited about a new set and they want to discuss cards with it, I'm like, sorry, I only look at it for the commons at this point. Like, I have a coworker that plays just Commander, and he was excited about the new Brawl decks for all these different reasons, and I was just like, no, but have you seen them basics? Those new lands that are basic land types? And he was like, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, isn't that cool?
You're still only looking at the commons and the uncommons.
Yeah, I just don't want to look at rares, Brandon. But I mean, if you're playing this and another actual standard or modern or legacy, then you're looking at every card and they might all be useful. If you're just playing legacy, you're just looking for like 1 and 2 mana spells that have broken abilities, and you're going to be disappointed 9 times out of 10. Whereas, I don't know, well, pauper players are generally pretty pleased, and I imagine that PDH players are the most pleased, since there's probably more playables for their format than anybody else, even if it means they'd have to build a whole new deck. But this is a brewing format. Like, that's what was fun about the one part about Commander I found fun was I got to brew.
So what do you think? Do you think you could play this in a multiplayer format?
I think so. I think that I'm going to say something spicy. I feel like this embodies the spirit of EDH better than EDH does. Because people get mad when you do infinite combos and stuff, and the infinite combos you're doing here, I feel like, are harder to set up. It's just different. Like, there are combos that are good. You can shut them down. You can recover from them. The games are going to grind out, and you're just eking out those little advantages against everybody else, and it's just going to be this confusing brawl of a whole bunch of people playing against each other that I think Commander's looking for to start with. And it's effectively done that with the rules of the game, and I can play my optimal 100-card deck, and it's not going to be that much better than somebody who has a bunch of stuff. And if I want to gift them stuff to make their deck better, it's going to cost me pennies and time. Is that too spicy of a thing to say? Have I just made everyone mad?
I mean, you probably made some people mad, but I think I agree. I think the hardest part about Commander, and the thing I hate, or my least favorite thing about it, probably the reason I don't play it, is how hard it is to find a game where you're on the same level as everyone else. Where there's not one person in the pod that's just like, turn 2 infinite combo, or where you're just like playing against a bunch of like souped up precon decks. You know, because Commander, I've actually had enjoyable games of Commander where everyone's on the same page of like, these are the power levels that we try to play at, and you know, this is like the goal of our game. We're trying to win, but we're not playing like cutthroat. You know, we're trying to win and do our goofy things at the same time, sort of a deal. And like, I think that this format could do that pretty well. You know, it's commons, you're pretty balanced. The power level's not going to be super high, with the exception of the cards on the watch list. I think that this format could probably be really balanced and lead to those types of game states where people are doing their goofy things or people are grinding out with each other. And, you know, if you want to be competitive, your playgroup can be competitive, but they're also not going to be like games where someone just combos the pod on turn 2.
Yeah. I have to think that this is like a 7-turn format. Like, that's the fastest you're going to die is by turn 7. Like, 30 life, I guess it could happen with like an invisible stalker or something. But maybe set up some rules with your playgroup of like, let's not play with a couple of these cards. You know, like, I think Ascended Law Mage, the Enigma Drake, Spellheart Chimera, and Invisible Stalker have something to them that they're going to close out the game too fast. The other ones are at least going to grind before they destroy you. Right?
All right, so we're going to build a PDH deck. Final answer. What uncommon card is your general?
So I've shown you my 1,000-card artifacts deck, right?
Yes.
I just want to play a 5-color kind of artifacty fun deck. And I think my commander is going to be either Transguild Courier or Fusion Elemental. Fusion Elemental is the Wooburg for an 8/8. I don't necessarily think it's going to be great, but I think it would be super fun.
All right, that sounds dope. So for me, obviously I would build Shadow Mage Infiltrator. Like, I have to have my homage to John Finkel. But I think the deck that I would really go for is Tatiova, Benthic Druid.
That sounds like fun.
That card just does everything I love to do in Dirtly formats, which is draw cards and just dirtle around.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many good options, though. Like, Young Pyromancer is an appealing one. Oh, I remembered what it was. I thought of this before. And I know that I would play this. I would just want to play Flame Tongue Kavu. Nothing flashy.
So
just
you get to kill like 2 creatures.
I'm just gonna read it real quick for the listeners. Flame Tongue Kavu is 3 and a red for a 4/2 creature Kavu. When Flame Tongue Kavu enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to target creature. So I would want to build like some kind of slower red deck, just a bunch of value burn spells like Searing Blaze and the Searing Blaze that clashes with your opponent. Just some random crap like the Prophet, the 1/3 that scries every time, Burning Prophet or something. I don't know.
Yes, and it gets +1/+0 whenever you cast spells.
Yeah, and then
whatever.
Like Swirling Sandstorm sounds like a lot of fun for me and nobody else. Yeah, that's Flame Tongue Kavu is 100% what I would do, and I might end up doing.
Sweet. Well, I guess we better get to deck building.
What are a couple notable cards that you'd put in Shadow Mage Infiltrator? I mean, would you just put all of like the blue-black control deck, or would you put some?
Yeah, I think I would start with like Mystical Teachings, Forbidden Alchemy. I think I would really just try to go for a blue-black control deck. Capsize, Evankar's Justice, cards like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, tons of removal, counter spells.
Would you put any extra like stuff to put on the Shadow Mage Infiltrator or help it out? Would
Probably
you just
not.
like not care that much and it might be some gravy?
I would not care about that. I would just get in for one. It's not about the damage. Like, I'm not trying to kill with commander damage. Shadow Mage Infiltrator is more just like for the colors and for its ability, draw a card. But in all honesty, it's really for John Finkel. So
Yeah, and I feel like a deck like that, it would be really easy to have some standbys. Like, oh, whoops, I'm a Psychotog deck now. Or, like, I know that there's like a 4-mana huge hexproof creature in those colors for some reason. I was looking at it before. Sorry, I don't remember the name of it.
probably also put like Exhume? Yeah, Exhume. That's the common. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, like an Exhume in my deck. Less about like reanimating stuff, like being a reanimator deck, but more just like the value of like I'm self-milling myself anyway, so
Wow, Exhume is each player, so
yeah.
that'd be fun, but I mean, in the min-maxy kind of way, that's definitely a bad idea.
Nah.
Yeah, okay.
I ain't scared. PDH.
Yeah, that's kind of the point.
Who cares if my opponent's getting back a Ulamog's Crusher? I'm getting back a Mole Drifter, and they're not going to attack me because I gave them the Ulamog's Crusher.
That's not true.
It is true.
If you're the most powerful person, then
Am I though? Because they have an Ulamog's Crusher.
Second, you're the second most powerful person behind the guy that has the Ulamog's Crusher now.
I think that you're vastly underestimating my ability to make players ignore me in Commander games. That's how I win every time I play Commander.
Hey man, I'll buy you a soda. Don't hit
No,
me.
not like that. That's but like convincing them that I'm not the threat. That was like how I won that whole Commander League that I played. I basically just dirtle around doing nothing, setting up, convincing them that everyone else is horrifying, convincing them that, hey, I'm going to target you with my Tassiger. Give me back this counter spell so I can counter their thing. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And then all of a sudden, I win.
I hate the political game. I am so bad at like any like werewolf or any kind of political game.
It's my favorite thing about Commander.
I hate it because like I prefer to have intimidation tactics of like, yeah, I'm gonna destroy you. What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna murder your cat if you attack me.
Everyone's like, I'm gonna shut you down. Like, oh, okay, but your cat is as good as dead. Just kidding. I love cats. we got into some weird territory there.
Yeah. What do you think? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
We should wrap it up.
End times.
All right, well, that's the show. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Common Knowledge. Again, big thank you to all of our great sponsors at inkgaming.com and Game Grid Midvale. Check out their online store in the link below, and don't forget about that coupon code CCMTG10, good for a 10% discount on all Ink Gaming supplies and accessories. You can find the show on puremtgo.com, as well as the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel. You can also send us an email if you'd like to at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. We love your emails. We love reading them. You can find the show on Twitter at CKPodcastMTG, as well as our ever-growing Facebook group, Common Knowledge. And Sean, where can the listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lobbert8, that is Lobbert and the number 8, as well as YouTube. You can find me if you just search for Lobbert. I have videos of me playing Pauper, usually Pauper Leagues there, so check that out.
Boom, and you can find me also on Twitter at bclark_CK. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye forever.